Hi everyone and welcome to episode 3 of Coffee with Cheese. I'm your host Narciso Bomben. For today's episode, I wanted to dig a little deeper into a topic I introduced on last week's show, and that is one of charitable giving. So to do that, I'm going to pull from an article from my Friday newsletter. It came out of the Financial Post. It was written by industry expert Jamie Gollenbach. Before I get into it a little bit more detail, I did want to talk about why charitable giving is near and dear to my heart. I have the pleasure of sitting on the board of directors for the Cancer Assistance Program in Hamilton. So I've seen firsthand the impact that not-for-profits and charities have in their community and why it's very important to support them, in particular when they don't receive government funding. So as I've titled this episode, Charitable Giving is a Win-Win, let's talk about the win-win relationship. So when you donate to a charity, you get a tax credit. So let me explain a little bit more the difference between this and when you make a contribution into an RRSP, for example. When you make that contribution into an RRSP, you reduce your taxable income. So essentially the effect is you save the marginal tax rate for that amount. When you give a donation, you receive what's called a non-refundable tax credit, which essentially reduces your tax bill. How it works specifically, and I'll use only the federal tax rates just to give you an example, is on the first $200 of donations, it's a 15% tax credit, and anything above $200 is 29%. So you can see how things quickly can add up. Now what you should be aware of is there is a limit of 75% of your net income. Now while for most people that is not going to happen, it can happen in some cases, and you should be aware of that you can carry forward that tax credit for 5 years. If you're involved in an estate, maybe the executor, you should know that that tax credit can go up to 100% of the deceased net income. Okay, so let's take a little bit of time and getting into some strategies around what you can do to take advantage of these tax credits. The first way to donate is simply through cash or credit card. Nowadays in this pandemic, cash is becoming less and less used, and I can see that happening in the future. So the credit card will be the way that this happens going down the road. It has a couple benefits. Depending on the card itself, there's going to be loyalty programs. Now, it would take quite the donation to get real benefits out of the loyalty program, but certainly that is one that is available to you. And then if you want to automate, if you want to give monthly versus as a lump sum, there's another benefit of just being able to put it onto your credit card and have it become part of your monthly expenses. Now, I should also say when we're talking about giving donations, I recognize this year has been a tough year for all of us, both personally and professionally. And there are some families that have been impacted financially from an income perspective. And even though in the past they've liked to give it to charity, this may not be the year. Whereas there's other families that have not been impacted from an income perspective, and their expenses are down because there's not as much available to do. So whether they're saving towards a future goal or maybe wanting to give to charity, it is something that is available. So I did want to bring that into the conversation because I want to be empathetic that this is not going to maybe necessarily fit for everybody. And certainly into next year and years following, it is an opportunity to reconsider. Another, probably the most common and powerful way to take advantage of these tax credits are by the donation of in-kind securities. So first off, securities can be a stock, a mutual fund, an exchange-traded fund. And when I say in-kind, I mean transferring ownership over to the charity versus selling out of it first. And this specifically, if we talk about a non-registered investment, if you were to sell out of the investment first and there's an unrealized gain, well, you as the individual are going to get hit with that tax burden. Whereas if you transfer the security in kind, here's the benefit. You receive the tax donations receipt for the full amount. Let's take $10,000 as an example. And if this investment had an average cost base of $5,000, that gain, which is usually taxed, is no longer there. So you get the full benefit, as does the charity, and there's no taxable consequence. Now, quite frankly, the same works if it happens to be a security that you want to donate in kind that has an unrealized loss. It is something that you could use to offset any gains from this year or previous 3 years, or you can carry it forward for as long as possible moving forward to take care of any gains in the future. Okay, so another thing, and it might be a reminder for some of you or some new information, is that when you're donating in a household where there's spouses or partners, it doesn't matter where the contribution is made, whose name it's in. It can be pulled together come tax time, and working with your accounting professional, have it applied to the higher income earning spouse. So this also gives a benefit that you'll get the biggest tax bang for your buck, regardless of who made the contribution. Another interesting approach is if you're in a situation where you're making a withdrawal from a registered account, such as an RSP, or in retirement, a registered retirement income fund. If you took out a little extra to use as your donation, yes, you're going to be taxed at your marginal tax rate, but depending on that rate, in some cases, the corresponding tax credit of making that donation to the charity of your choice might actually have a better and higher net effect to your taxes. So it's another way of looking at how to give that might be more tax beneficial to you while allowing the charity to benefit, of course. The last thing I wanted to close off on was more of a strategic way of giving to your favorite charity. Everything I've mentioned is more of an ad hoc, in-ear, lump sum, maybe a smaller monthly amount, but there is something called a donor advised fund. Think of it at an individual level like having your own foundation. So organizations such as myself and my own organization and other financial institutions offer these solutions. So rather than creating your own foundation, which could be costly and time consuming, they have a fit for some individuals, but not for most of the population. These donor advised funds allow you to give at a more strategic level year after year. And the beauty of them is once you make that lump sum contribution into the fund, you get the tax benefit right away. And then each year you can decide up to a certain percentage of the fund who to give to. It could change year to year. And there are thousands of registered charities in Canada to take advantage of. So with that, I wanted to close off the episode again, and thank you for watching. I invite you to leave any comments, questions at all for me. And certainly if there are any topics you want to hear on a future episode of Coffee with Cheese, it'd be my pleasure to discuss them. Thanks for watching. Have a great day and a great rest of the week.